Good evening and welcome to Leicester Fan TV. Tom here for another away day fans special. Tonight we are joined by Ricky from the Last Word on Spurs as we build up to, well, as Leicester fans, another mouth-watering tie in the Premier League. We need a win. We haven't had a win this season, and after watching Tottenham lose last night, we all know what's going to come, a backlash. But this is Leicester. Hopefully we can turn the tide and get the first win. Let's get Ricky in and let's see what he's going to say on the game at the weekend. Evening, Ricky.
Hi, mate. Thanks so much for having me on, Tom. Really appreciate it.
No problem, mate. Obviously, Tottenham last year played 38, won 22, drawn 5, lost 11, points 71, finished in fourth place with a goal difference of 29. Over the two legs last year, obviously Leicester City 2, Tottenham 3, blew it in the last 90 seconds of extra time, and you boys scored 2 goals inside a minute. And then, well, what can you say? Tottenham 3, Leicester 1. You boys gave us a hell of a battering, and we didn't deserve. Obviously, season you've made a lot of changes. Richarlison, Spence, Foster, Pezic. You've made some big signings in there this summer. What have we got to expect going into the game at the weekend different from last year, mate? Because obviously you boys are flying, already won 4 games and drawn 2.
It's a bit of a weird one, Tom, because I think if I was going to speak to you a couple of nights ago, I think my mood would be different. Obviously, bearing in mind we've just come off the back of a defeat in the Champions League. And I mean, that's our first defeat of the season. And it does feel like it's almost papered over some cracks what we've had previously, where I think there's a definitive issue at the moment with regards to Spurs' style of play. I know it sounds weird me coming in moaning to you, given Leicester's predicament and position. And bear in mind, Spurs are unbeaten in the Premier League. Have only suffered the 1 defeat so far. But I honestly think you're facing Spurs at quite a good time to play us. I mean, listen, we have had a good summer. We have recruited really well. We've gotten a number of players that we obviously wanted to do early. I think there has been some frustration that Spurs never went for a number 10. I think Maddison is a player that I think a lot of Spurs fans would love to have, but obviously he's remained a Leicester City player. I'm conscious, Tom, you've got enough going on in terms of your market over the summer with obviously the Fofana deal dragging and the fact that you didn't make many additions, just bar the one. So for me to start coming on here saying we should have got a number 10, bearing in mind what we've done, 7 or 8 signings, I feel quite inadequate to say that. But overall, I think, generally Spurs have had a fairly decent summer in the market, bar maybe not sorting that position out. I think there's still this issue for Tottenham over right wing back. I think there's massive concern over whether Emerson Royale will be ever good enough for Spurs in that position. We have seen that Jed Spence and Matt Doherty so far haven't got a look in. Emerson Royale is currently on a 17th consecutive game at right wing back, despite driving Spurs fans up the wall. And then midfield at the moment, obviously he seemingly, Conte preferred the pairing of Højbjerg and Bentancur, which I think just maybe needs a bit of a reshuffle and a change. I think with Conte, one thing you will get with him is a real consistency in lineup. And we've seen that really since he's come into the job. Doesn't really make many changes, 2 or 3 at the most, and sometimes only just the 1, and sometimes not at all. So he's tried to really keep a consistent side. Of course, Spurs got in the Champions League last season under Conte. I think there's really been big expectations this season that Spurs would try and go one step further and look to try and challenge the likes of City and Liverpool. How difficult that is, bearing in mind they amassed 90 points a season. But I think at the moment with Spurs, there is just that feeling that the style of football is quite grating on the eye. And I think we're all hoping that Leicester will be the perfect remedy to that, and we can get back to seeing Spurs free-flowing and scoring lots of goals.
Obviously, you signed an interesting character in Richarlison in the summer. What have you made of him? Obviously, he spent a few games on the bench before coming in, and now he's getting a run of games. What have you thought of that signing?
Oh, you got it, Tom?
Yeah, so mate, lost signal. I was just saying, obviously you saw Richarlison in the summer, an interesting character, very big personality to come into a football club. What have you made of him? Obviously, the game that will stand out so far, in my view, would be the Tottenham versus Nottingham Forest game, when he came on and decided to do some keepy uppies on the far side of the pitch and got absolutely mullered by the Forest player. We all love a showboater, but also he's a bit of a a fans love to hate player, if we come to mind. Similar to Robbie Savage back in the day when Tottenham fans had this hate against Savs.
That's true.
What have you made of Richarlison since he's been at the football club? Because he is a very good player on his day.
Yeah, been massively impressed by Richarlison, to be fair. I mean, again, there's been that clamour for him to start more games. Of course, starting the Champions League for Tottenham. And it, again, was probably his first real under par performance, but he's made a real good impact for Tottenham so far. Scored a couple of goals last week for the club in the Champions League and has really, last night for Tottenham, come on and affected every single game that he's been called in for. So I think there'll be lots of Spurs fans like me that will want to see him start the weekend against Leicester. 100%. I think he does like a goal against Leicester as well, I think, from speaking to your colleague Jamie. So I think, again, we'd definitely be keen to see Richarlison in a Spurs shirt playing against Leicester at the weekend. And so far, been a really good signing. I think Spurs have strengthened an area of already strengthened. Obviously, of course, Heung-min Son, Harry Kane, Dejan Kulusevski. And now bringing Richarlison into that, you've got yourself 4 decent forwards that, albeit, although Son's form has dropped off, Spurs, obviously, up the front, still looking fairly strong.
You say Song's form has dropped off. He's about to play Leicester, mate, and we always like to give a record away at the best times. Before we talk about the team for your weekend, the game I'd like to speak about this season would be the 2-2 draw, the Battle of the Bridge ×2 between Conte and Tuchel. Obviously, Tuchel's now left Chelsea, but what was your view on that whole charade, mate, on the touchline? From a Leicester fan looking in, it was very much like Tuchel caused the whole thing, especially at the end when they went on to do the handshake. Obviously, Conte just shook his hand and went to walk, and he held his hand. He didn't want to let go for some reason. What did you make of that game in whole? Because it was an entertainment, as a neutral watching that game. It was a very entertaining game. You've scored a lot of goals this season. You've nearly 2 goals a game every single game. What would you make of that instant? And are you expecting goals again coming into Saturday's game?
Yeah, I mean that Chelsea game was so weird, Tommy, because we didn't play well at all. If I'm being honest with you, Spurs somehow escaped from the bridge with a point. And again, that's what I said about earlier, that you do feel with Tottenham that a lot of the performances have really been papering over cracks. If I'm being honest with you, I mean it was very bizarre that instant at the end. I felt Tuchel really, as we've seen subsequently, he's lost his job. Maybe under a bit of pressure, really, to get results. I think the day itself got to him. I mean, anything like I say, a manager, you're going to be frustrated when you score and then you concede in such a fashion they did from a corner. Was it 96th minute? I mean, again, probably the most difficult thing to take as a manager. So I don't think you can be too angry with him because emotion is high in football. But I think 100%, he was the instigator of that. But I'm sure, again, Conte on the touchline, as you're aware as well, he does love to stoke the fire and does love to celebrate. So I'm sure that wouldn't have gone down too well with Tuchel. But I mean, subsequently, like I say, that handshake in a weird way felt like it was seemingly kind of tipping towards the end for Tuchel. And like I say, he never really recovered from that game mentally, I think.
What's your predicted lineup then going into the weekend, especially playing back-to-back Champions League games? So you've had a week off at the weekend before, because obviously you boys didn't play, same as no one played. Yeah. What do you expect him to make many changes going into this weekend's games?
Well, do you know what? I mean, I'll be honest with you, Tom, it might sound mad me saying this to you, because when I consider the pressure that Rodgers is under compared to Conte, I presume it's nowhere near in the same stratosphere. But I think there is a little bit of pressure on Conte to change up the 11 purely because recently we've seen to start games so lethargic, so slow, ponderous. I'm conscious I'm saying this, and Spurs are still unbeaten in the Premier League, but it does feel like that at the moment with Tottenham. So I think the difference is what I think he'll do and what I'd like to see. I mean, what I would like to see is I'd like to see Jed Spence given his first start of the season, a Spurs shirt. Very highly thought of course, from Forest's point of view. I'd love to see him in the team for Tottenham. Whether he does start is another question. I think we would like to see a change in the midfield. I think Højbjerg, to be fair to him, Conte loves him as a leader and a general, but I just think he's absolutely knackered and would like to see Basuma come in for him. But it really wouldn't surprise me at all if Conte was to go unchanged, which would mean the side would be from left to right. You'd have Hugo Lloris in goal. You'd have that wing back system where you'd have Ivan Perisic on the far left. You didn't have Eric Dyer, Ben Davis, Christian Romero, Emerson Royale, the fans' favourite on the right at the moment. And then you've got the midfield duo of obviously Højbjerg, Bentancur, which I think he'll make a change. I do think he will bring Basuma in for Højbjerg. And then, of course, you've got that it's a real debatable at the moment, the front three of Kane, Son, and Richarlison. I know there's a lot of clamour at the moment to maybe give Son a rest because he just simply isn't hitting the back of the net. I know you said earlier, Tom, this is the best time to be playing Leicester. But, I mean, I do think, Kulusevski hasn't really done much wrong to be dropped, and he's looked at the real impact when he's come off the bench. That might be that argument to maybe start with Kulusevski, Kane and Richarlison, Son on the bench, Leicester are tired in those last 20 minutes, maybe chasing the game. Son comes on and looks to kill them off. So that might be one option he goes with. But I think there's always goals between us, isn't there? I mean, Spurs and Leicester always seem to produce lots and lots of goals. So I'm sure you'll want a couple the way your season's gone. And we'll be looking for a hatful, hopefully.
And before you go, well, we talk about Mr. Spence, because obviously last time we played Forest, he scored a goal and we lost 4-1 in the FA Cup in January or February. So, yeah, we know that boy very well, and he had a storm that day. Before you go, mate, what's your score prediction going into the game Saturday, please, bud?
Yeah, we'll go with 3-1 Spurs. I can't see Spurs keeping a clean sheet at the moment. I think Leicester will score. But I just think on the day, I think Spurs will have a bit too much for Leicester. And hopefully it's a day where Heung-min Son finally gets his first Premier League goal of the season.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ricky. I know you're busy, man. Brilliant for joining us, and we'll catch up soon, mate.
Nice one, Tom. Thank you so much, mate. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Cheers, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.
And there we go. Another away fan show. Great to have Ricky on. Great to chat about Spurs. Look, massive game going into the weekend. We all know we need to get this win before the international break. Even a point would just be a great result against a team, as they just said, Spurs, who are still unbeaten in the Premier League and lost once all season. As remember, keep it Leicester Fan TV. Join Reedy on Friday night as we build up to Spurs on Saturday. But for now, thank you for joining me. Like it, share it. Leicester Fan TV, for the fans, by the fans. Good night.